You're about to hear the recorded audio diaries of Michael Swain, Adam Ganzer, and Abe Epperson, transmitted to you from another dimension through the wonder of podcast technology. Lost in the multiverse, they have to dig into a different piece of multiversal fiction each episode, in the hopes of finally discovering a way back to their reality. How do they know this isn't their reality? Because one of them is being a real asshole. Will our heroes ever make it home, or will they inadvertently explore our obsession with multiverses, alternate timelines, and parallel worlds, and tie it all into a conversation about postmodern art, pop culture, and what it means to be a human right now? This is Escape from the Multicurse.
Welcome everyone to Escape from the Multicurse. I am one of your three intrepid hosts traveling through the many multiverses. I am Adam Ganzer, and with me is one of my two favorites, co-hosts, looking devilishly handsome, hair slicked back. They still don't know which one I'm talking about, but it's Abe Epperson.
Woo, it's me. I'm Abe Epperson.
That's right. And joining us also for this joyous ride through the multiverse history is the one and only, the handsome, the devilish, Michael Swain.
Abe number 2. Oh.
I think we did that bit, didn't we? It was a good bit. Anyway.
No, I'm not tipping that. That was not a real bit. Don't count that, listener.
No, disregard that. We don't know who's an asshole yet, other than your traditional standard opinions. Anyway, today we're going to talk about a 1999 film about alternate realities that isn't The Matrix. That's right, your favorite, my favorite, The 13th Floor.
Yeah, non-existence.
Yeah. Right.
Not
even
another
that.
1999.
Yeah.
That's right. The 13th Floor, 1999 science fiction film written and directed by Yusuf Rusnak, but also produced by Roland Emmerich, which I thought was interesting. And
explains why it's such an epic disaster.
Oh, God.
I love it.
I loved this movie as a kid and haven't watched it in 20 years or whatever. And I was like, yeah, it's just less engaging than I remember. But
it's no Matrix.
It's no Matrix.
It's no stunt spectacular. It's missing that aspect.
100%.
True.
Let's just jump right into the multi-map, shall we?
Yeah, baby.
Okay. This is the section of the show, as I interpret it, where we each give a short, truncated, hot take on this film's merits and also how it impacts our understanding of the multiverse in pop culture writ large, and also anything else you want to say. Abe, you want to be the first into the fricassee?
So, in terms of how this is unique in multiverses stories, it's not that. This is almost a horror story, which we see quite a bit, where it's like, it's all about characters their identity being taken away from them, being used by someone else. And so this checks all the boxes of, and is often compared to, as you mentioned, The Matrix, which are, 1999, we're positing a deeper mystery to existence. And it appeals to the feeling that your life is empty, obviously. Whereas with more reflection, I realized that The Matrix spends a ton of time on identity and how like programmed expectations on the individual are false. This speaks more to the immediate premise of finding out you're in a simulation. Basically, what if your life wasn't your own? So in terms of movies that look at faux realities, this is definitely a case where individuals in the program fight back. And in this way, it shares more of its ideas with something like an MCU universe or multiverse, like WandaVision, when Wanda usurps other versions of herself, for example, than it is like The Matrix, which treats Matrix reality as non-real and kind of frivolous. Here, you're fighting yourself, not a system. And again, it's about claiming the one true timeline.
Yep.
Oh, really interesting. Yeah, how they're both fundamentally the same offer, but Matrix is about liberation. You wake up and you throw off the shackles, and this is like, no, it transcends you. You're a puppet, and you echo yourself. Yeah, that's
true.
Wow.
Mike, are you ready to go, or do you want me to jump in first?
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting. I mean, I love that take, which I didn't see at all, just in terms of how the same offer can mean the opposite depending on how you frame it, or the slight twists of your sci-fi rules. Like the very fact that this has a unique, semi-unique, because I think there's a Gerard Butler movie that did this too, not too too long ago. The unique aspect of like, you can't just be anyone in the Matrix. There's a you, and they look like you. And like Severance, which I do think is a very interesting rule set.
Good.
When you're not them, they still are like Sims. They're still living their lives, and they think they have memory gaps. And then when you're you know, oh, I have a memory gap, but it's because I was being this guy. So very like, it's more specific than the Matrix. And I think though that special, like those strings attached in that formulae really make it sing for me as just a metaphor for marriage, right? Like he says at the beginning, ignorance is bliss, but I've seen the awful truth. You're stuck in like this bubble that sort of limits all your life choices into just this narrow, terrible thing you have to face. Like, it's fitting that it opens with a Descartes line, because Descartes famously is Cartesian dualism, right? Descartes was big about like Plato in the cave, but his own riff on it, that there's this ethereal plane and then there's the mortal plane. So I think they are talking about like your life pre-marriage and then your life after. You like chain yourself to this altar that's like you. And it's like every fucking day, there I am. Why did I do this? Right? It's like, I think, therefore I nag and sit on the couch eating bonbons. Am I right, fellas?
Ew. He's so right.
When the man has a point,
Glad you agree.
he really has one.
Old ball and chain.
God, my old lady. But this isn't about that. Let's get back on topic.
Oh, good. I'm so glad to hear that's not what it's about.
Oh, that won't come up again.
I didn't think it would either. Yeah. So this is the first time I'd ever seen the 13th
You know,
Floor.
Roland Emmerich produced my marriage too. Sorry, I'm done.
No,
It was a
disaster. Great.
To my core. Did he do the core?
I think he did not. No.
It was a honeymoon fall.
Ooh,
Found it.
I liked it. I didn't like this at all. And I'll tell you why.
Spoilers, you presented it, or you
I know
chose
it was my idea. I'd never seen it, but I was like, that seemed like a good movie. I'll tell you why I didn't like it. This may seem very selfish, or I guess very nitpicky. This movie proves why you need a movie star, because it doesn't have one. This movie has two actors who are good but not movie stars. And
you're not a big fan of Craig Burko?
No, who his biggest role was the one he didn't take. Did you know which one that is, Abe?
David Schwimmer in Friends.
Chandler Bing in Friends.
Chandler.
He was supposed to be Chandler in Friends.
Son of a bitch.
Which is wild. No, and I'm not criticizing him as an actor as much as I'm saying, like, this movie just has a flatness to it. Like, just, it's not very emotionally engaging because it's really kind of just the puzzle. And I want it to be more than just the puzzle. And I think the reason that it isn't is it's deeply uncurious about what makes something self-conscious. Like, on a premise level, this movie's suggesting that the present world we're in is a simulation, right? A la Matrix. And then within the simulation, the people have created another simulation of 1930s LA, which, okay. And, the spoiler, of course, is it turns out there's a super world that's actually 2024, which turned out to be hilarious. And
the far-flung year of 2024
the far-flung 2024
is the outside super world that we end up in.
Which is very funny. And the one thing that I feel like I would want a movie like this to do to make me interested in it is explain what thing made the simulations alive. Like, that's the thing that is actually interesting and is completely
why are they
absent.
Sims? Yeah, how come they keep going in your absence?
Right, because that's the stuff that would make for interesting plot points. For instance, I feel like if any of these characters discovered they were in a simulation, their brain couldn't process it because that concept couldn't exist to a sim unless they're independently thinking agents, which again, I just don't see why that would have happened, right?
Or have an AI that can actually learn new things.
Exactly. Yeah. It's sort of like even if I was Shakespeare and wrote a play in Hamlet's hand that said, Hamlet by Shakespeare, right? I still don't know that he would have the categories to understand what me being Shakespeare writing that means. You know what I mean? And like that's what's strange about the simulation is they're just deeply uncurious for how creatures would learn a thing like that, and then what would they do with that information? And instead, it's kind of just a caper, which it's fine. It's not a bad movie. I don't want to shit on it and say it's bad. I just feel like the more interesting questions that like The Matrix would explore,
Right.
or at least explain, they didn't do that. That was kind of a disappointment for me.
And I know I always stump for this movie, and we already covered it, but I have to always just shout it out. That's what I love about Dark City is their bread and butter is guys sitting going like, what does this mean? The fuck am I feel like I'm insane. I think that is kind of an appropriate reaction.
Right. And like, I think that's...
Why did I say yes? Why I do? You know?
Like, I'd rather watch Tarantino make this movie. And I like Tarantino, but this would be way out of style for him just because he would think to make the characters talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, they would be curious about it.
You know, in the outer reality, a Big Mac is called a Mac Big.
Right.
It's a big...
It's a much bigger
You know, in
Mac.
the outer reality, we're all feet. We're just feet walking around.
Wasn't his brother Dick McDonald? Is that the joke you're
Wait,
referencing?
what? No, it's a quarter pounder with cheese as a Royale with cheese.
Royale with
the
cheese.
Pulp
It's the
Fiction.
two-
Oh, I thought you were citing the fact that the two McDonald brothers are Dick and Mac, so you're glad that they called it a Big
Is
Mac.
this in McDonald's lore? Do you know McDonald's lore?
I do, and this
Holy
is
shit.
true about McDonald's.
I would love to talk
I just
about
like
this.
the idea of like, what are you gonna do? I'm going to McDonald's to scarf on some big dick.
You know, Richard Branson's company, Virgin America, produced video games for a very brief period for the Sega Genesis. And one was Mick and Mac, and you shoot slime at monsters and you eat Big Macs that were the power-up, so it was a McDonald's
Damn.
game.
It feels like
That's
it's gotta
synergy.
be my job to remind us that our next segment is Verses on Verses.
Versus on
Sure.
versus.
In
I
which-
wanted to talk
Yeah, go ahead.
first.
Sure.
I just wanted to respond to what you
Yeah.
said because I find it very interesting. And I'm interested in dissecting it with you.
Okay.
You said that this movie seems to be deeply uncurious about what makes The Sims special.
Right.
And Swaim has heard me espouse this because I think this is a wider sci-fi problem
Okay.
that and I don't know if it's like sci-fi's problem. I think it's a human problem that we will never solve until we've solved it, which is, to me, the question you're actually asking. And, you know, I may be putting words in your mouth, but like, what makes Sims special, or what's the magic? You know, why are they just like us? You're asking the question, what is intelligence?
Yes,
right?
or consciousness.
Or the
Yes.
spark of life.
Which
Yeah.
we have yet to really define. I mean,
Yes,
you can go to a
that's
Webster's
correct.
right now, but if we knew it,
Yeah.
then we would be able to craft artificial intelligence.
Well, that's
And
what
since
I
we-
know when it went out for me. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But I can't
Yeah.
like tell you what it is. Oh
When did it
yeah,
go out?
dude. I know the day
know when it was
that flame extinguished. Sorry, go on.
Ring-ding-ding-a-ling. No,
No, I agree with you, Abe. So, Abe, are you ever worried about AI as we currently have it rising up? Are you worried about that?
As we currently have it?
Yeah, like on the trajectory it's
In
currently
no
exists.
way.
Me neither.
In 0%.
It's not AI. It's
Exactly.
a
Because-
marketing. That's a marketing term for a thing that they're
It's
trying to push.
regurgitation tools.
But this
which
is
are
where we
great.
get to, and I hate that about it, and I wish we would just call it, you know, complex algorithms or something
Reserve
like that.
that word for when we finally
For
do that,
actual
if we-
intelligence,
yeah,
correct.
yeah.
We will.
So, yeah, we'll eventually rebrand because it'll be cool to do that. Anyway, the question becomes, why can't we make artificial intelligence? Right? Like, why isn't that
Mhm.
possible? Or is it possible and we just haven't figured out the...
Well, I think there's a processing problem,
Okay.
like people, you know, figuring out how to replicate a brain, which will be surpassed at some point, I think.
Mhm.
But then there's the philosophical question: what makes us us? Which is a very uncomfortable thing.
Yep. But it's
Because
also...
humans are not very good at self-reflection in that way.
And yet that's the thing the movie starts with. I think, therefore I am. The classic Descartes quote implying...
That's a separate problem, I would
It's a
argue,
separate
but-
problem, but also it drags with it the problem of the meaning of self, right?
How do we
Well,
categorize
it's there, so
Exactly.
they're raising the issue. They
Exactly.
did not put that quote there, so
Yeah,
it's
that-
like,
they
okay, well then
obnoxiously,
have
by
an
the way.
answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have
that
an
aspect
answer.
of it is very much true. Yeah.
Have
And
an
I think
answer.
it's a valid point. We are, because that's like a soundbite wisdom. It's almost laughed at, I would argue, philosophically, as a, you know, like, it feels right, but it's specious in a way.
You mean Descartes'
Um,
claim?
Yeah, you can't just, because we have already technically, quote, thinking machines. Are they self-aware? You know,
Well,
self-awareness is often something that we look at as a necessary tenet people have written kind of manifestos about this.
I think Therefore I Am is also a philosophical assertion that is not provable, as all worldviews are ultimately, but yeah.
I've heard it retranslated as I doubt, therefore I am, which is slightly more interesting to me because it does become a logical loop that proves itself a priori, meaning
Right.
I doubt my existence or question my existence. Therefore, there must be an agent that exists that is doing that action. Therefore, I exist. It's like considered one of the base units, right, of philosophical.
It thrills
discourse,
me.
is proving that you exist so you can do other stuff from that.
Well, and of course, that one central focused idea has left us with all these problems of epistemology that we live with in philosophy now.
Yeah.
A problem that
because
this
some
movie...
things transcend words, but words are often all we have. Which is tricky
that's
too,
exactly what Wittgenstein would say. In any case, the reason that gets interesting with relation to this movie is this movie just assumes forward the most interesting problems, right? So one of the most interesting problems is, what would you do if you were a living sim and had these brain gaps? Nobody does anything with this, with their mental lapses. Like, nobody goes to a psychologist. Nobody goes to a doctor. Like, everyone's just living with this shit. In fact, discovering
who could help you?
Does
Who
it
could help
smooth
you?
that logic over for you to understand the final reveal that, like, they are even more rudimentary? You know what I mean? They're Sims
That they're
made
not
by
actually-
Sims.
Well, I would say,
Like, it's a play within a
yes.
play, which I kind of buy that it would be a Xerox of a Xerox, or
Like
like the
multiplicity
Matrix
style?
that the Matrixes invent is not
Yeah.
as good. Yeah.
Yeah, that does make sense. It just creates this problem then for me to be happy for Gretchen Mol and not Chandler's relationship at the end, which the movie really wants me to care about. You know?
Yeah, that was
Again,
silly. She's
all
like, I
they
loved
land
you
on is love.
before.
Well, I guess love transcends it, I guess.
Yeah, we're simple. And
Yeah,
that's all we need for a happy ending. Here's the ultimate
Does love
issue.
triumph all? Sorry, let me ask that
Well,
question.
they die mentally when they're linked. It's like if you die in the dream, you die in real life. Like how if you get married in real life, your dreams die. Yeah.
I was wondering about that. Yeah.
Ring ding ding a ling.
I don't. Are you the asshole? Are you
Yeah, I
doing
love
like a
it. I
ring
love
ding a
it.
ling
You
bit?
got a catchphrase.
I like that bit.
It's a
A
great
ring a
bit.
ding
Thank
ding.
you.
The ring a ling bit. Ring a ling
Yeah,
ding.
so here's the
Golden
deal. Is,
barn.
like, a lot of sci-fi Ex Machina has this problem as well.
Yeah.
When we write robots or we write AI or we write, simulation stuff. I mean, I would say Matrix doesn't have this problem just because Matrix has the brain in the vat concept where it's like there isn't really an avatar. It's just you. You're just in a wrong reality and you're being overwritten, so to speak. In this, it's like they're arguing that digital life is worth equal to real life.
Yes, they are.
Well, and the mechanic is such that if you die, and this even goes to the overworld because that's the final offer. If you die in your simulation, your character has a full enough soul consciousness that it jumps up the stream and takes over your life and your reality.
Yeah.
So they're more than Sims. They're whatever
full
you want to call it.
consciousness.
Full
They're
human
fully conscious.
souls. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're right about there is no curiosity on that, because I would argue that we always phrase the AI question in a wrong way. The example I like to give is that you're always looking at these things through windows because there's always a zoo-esque kind of interaction with the android, so to speak. It's always like, look at that thing. The Turing test itself can it fool humans, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
If that's true, that's not an actual adequate definition of intelligence. It might be closer to an adequate definition of what human intelligence is. But honestly, if you don't need a window, you need a mirror if you're going to ask that question. And this movie, you're right, doesn't do it. And I would argue that almost all of sci-fi refuses to do this because it's really tough to say that to someone.
I would argue all these multiverse stories we've looked at don't know how to ask this question because ultimately we can't handle a fully complex multiverse. Like, we can't handle a multiverse with the same level of complexity that we live in. Right? It has to be a photocopy. It has to have a city limits,
Which is why we get such kind of almost childlike responses to, like, in this movie, for example, when people learn that their life is a simulation, they utterly shut down or become violent, and they feel no need to obey any rules, right? For the most part, that's kind of what we say happens to you. And I don't know if that's true, because if given in the movie that everyone's equally real, why would that change? Like, if you learn tomorrow that we're in a simulation, this reality, would you murder or steal without guilt?
No, why would it be different? Why would it be?
Exactly.
Why would it being a simulation matter?
Why for these characters is it such a problem?
That's interesting.
That's something that's not great when we do in stories, but it makes it more dramatic because now you have Vincent D'Onofrio trying to shoot you.
Well, just the idea of what is real, like this movie, unlike The Matrix, is very grounded and concrete about what is real in a non-deliberative way, right? Like they all agree, oh, it's a simulation, therefore it's not real, therefore it doesn't matter.
And we don't have to unpack that because who cares? It's a simulation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody wants to sit around watching them debate. I get that. And again, unless
well, but that's my issue with the movie is you largely do. My takeaway now as a film viewer who is an adult who understands something about how films are made was, oh, there's a surprising amount of lore dump scenes in this movie that I forgot about that are clearly scenes that, like, in The Matrix that we keep comparing to, you would see that. Or like, let's see that thing you just described is more visually interesting than you mentioning it. It feels like they ran out of budget largely, or the conscious decision was made. This is not a stunt-driven spectacular. It's an intimate bedroom drama with the one effects shot of the end of the world.
Right.
It's like
about the idea of,
yeah,
it's like so early in the development of this idea, which is funny because it's as old as Descartes or Plato. But, you know, in this 1999 way where we were really focused on this idea clearly, I feel like this is the initial volley. It's like the movie where they're like, I bet we could get a whole movie out of just the reveal that the Matrix has in Act 1. Yeah. And I mean, you see that rudiment through and through, like their pod. Like the Matrix pod is iconic at this point with the thing jacked into your head. The pod in this is literally like a repurposed MRI machine, I believe.
That's
MRI.
what it looks like. Yeah.
Marriage ruins intimacy. Am I right, fellas? Original sin. It was the woman's fault. Don't forget that, fellas.
Don't forget that.
Never forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never forget.
I can't.
Eve. 0.
Can't forget it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I also think I was just going to mention one more thing on the digital life is worthless kind of idea.
Yeah.
Also, we have the character of David, who's the, our Craig Burko's, prime.
Mm-hmm.
And he's he's a psychopath.
Yeah.
Abusive husband, yeah.
And that, like in another property, Westworld, we obviously have people getting thrills from killing quote unquote lesser beings. And I think the central point here is that the really question I ask is, would you do crimes guilt-free? But I think there are people, and this is what, this kind of wave, like you mentioned, the Gen X wave of licentiousness that caused movies like Fight Club and stuff. If there's no consequence to the lawbreaker, why would they could commit more crimes? So if you're already like a psychopath, you would do things like that. You would hurt and teabag your peers in a digital space.
True, but life is a spectrum where I feel like shame is a powerful herd tool, meaning not only illegality, meaning that like it's not illegal to build a series of scarecrows in your front yard and sexually assault them. But
thank God
everyone around you would notice. Like people would
and
adjust
be like,
the way they react to you.
And they'd be like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Look at you, scarecrow fucker.
Get ready for your wedding night, right? That dry, scratchy feeling. Speaking of Westerns, what's his name? I know Abe knows his name. The guy from Deadwood. What's his character's name in Deadwood is here?
Al Swearingen?
No, Al's not in it. In this movie, the guy that runs the competing tavern is in this movie.
Powers Booth?
Oh, Leon Rippey.
Rippey, right. It just reminded me of how
Tom
like
Nuttall.
I can't maintain an erection when I see my wife dead.
Yeah. Dude, speaking of maintaining an erection, can you
see
bring up one thing that I was
Can I show this to you?
Vincent D'Onofrio, the middle version, the 1999 version, who's just a nice guy who's just a tech, right?
Yeah. That guy.
He's surprised when they find out that the guy who invented the tech, the old man who dies at the beginning, he was like, what was he doing in there? And they find out he was having sex with girls. And I love that Vincent D'Onofrio is surprised by that.
Yeah, come on.
Says the man who is looking at an old man on a table with nightly erections.
Yeah, exactly. What are we talking about?
Right,
Also, he doesn't get a
body-
report. Like, get out of here, man. You know, yeah.
And also, in the same instance, the 1937 version of Greyer, of Hannon Fuller is his name, mentions that he has blackouts and sometimes he wakes up and he smells women's perfume on himself.
Yeah.
I think that the first worry you'd have if you were taken over for 2 hours and like by a dirty dog would be that you like, I woke up and someone had clearly been using my dick.
Yeah, right.
Like,
Like, think about
like
it.
they
Yeah,
literally, not to be grim, and I won't
Right.
get it, but they just closed today a huge rape case where this woman kept waking up with memory gaps and weird smells on her and finally realized her husband was drugging her. And it's like, that would be immediately where my mind went. That's the number one with a bullet.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's what's happened to me. I'm going to go proceed from
it
that.
feels
Yeah.
like that. I mean, maybe not. Maybe he's always using his dick. And so it's just like a drop in
And
the
always
bucket
putting
to this
perfume
guy.
on there because he just likes the feel.
So in any case, I just thought that there was a lot. This movie avoided.
As the detective who has almost no function in the plot says, he made the age-old mistake trusting a beautiful woman.
You mean the guy
Yeah,
from Progressive?
As did I. Well, except she
Yeah.
wasn't beautiful, and she's more of a cross-eyed water snake than a woman. But
Whoa!
the rest stands.
Sorry, I'm just repeating. Cross-eyed water snake. Is that what you said?
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Ripping the flesh from my bones.
Yes, I remember when that happened.
Classic.
No.
Healthy.
Vincent D'Onofrio. This is one of my favorite split character performances in a movie. Not because because he was good necessarily, but just because of how big of an offer both of those characters are.
He's like, I'm the bartender from The Shining, or I'm one of the lone gunmen
Or
from
I'm
that
like
X-Files
the
spinoff.
sweetest guy on the Twister crew.
Hey,
You know what I mean?
man.
Yeah.
He used the robot for sex
Come
stuff?
on,
that
man.
never even occurred to me, man.
Yeah, what do you mean never occurred to you? Like that's the first thing that occurred to that
Yeah.
guy. Get out of here.
That's yeah. I think. Well, that's a big question that I think this movie does kind of inspect a little bit, which is where would you go on the holodeck?
Yeah.
Like I do think it's funny that the inventor of the simulation is like, I'm going to sleep with ladies from the 1930s.
Party and drink and gamble and have just be a
Right.
hedonist. Yeah.
I don't understand why they made a 30-something simulation related.
Well,
to
Star
this.
Trek does this shit all the time.
This
It's
is just the Voyager episode, Fairhaven. She falls in love with one of the guys and questions whether he has real consciousness.
Yeah, but she questions
yeah,
it.
it's like
That's why it's Star Trek.
right. They
Time-
discuss it. Yeah, sure.
time and time again, we have this thing where if we had a holodeck or a simulation room that we could create anything, what would you do? You wouldn't create a fantastic new idea. You would go back to oldie times
Yeah.
to fuck or murder.
Well, I feel like I'm
And-
realizing this is the inheritor of Genie stories also.
Mhm.
This is the Genie story, right? And it's supposed to reveal, okay, there's no consequences, you sick little monkeys.
So
yeah.
Let's be honest about what your desire would do with ultimate
But
power.
why
in
is
this
it always
moment,
like
right?
yeah, so let me
Flapper
posit that that's actually
Are you just saying why is it? the
that's
30s?
actually
Yeah.
why movies are like a lot of films are not as creative as reality demands, because video games are often asking this question, right? Video games have been creating sandboxes for vices for their entire existence, right? And probably the most popular of those is Grand Theft Auto, right? Like Grand Theft Auto in a very rudimentary sense is the experiment of this movie. And there's a reason that Grand Theft Auto didn't succeed in the 30s when they tried that. You know what I mean? Or I guess it was the late 40s, right? Because
Meaning L.A. Noir.
yeah, right. Partly because they wanted to do all the detective tropes, but also because I think that people want to play Vice Playground in their own world. That's actually the appeal of it. You know?
I was gonna say,
Oh,
I want to
yeah.
feel
That's a fair
special.
point.
I want to feel special. That's more important than I want to feel a unique
Immersed.
Right. That's why
experience.
Hogwarts in Harry Potter isn't in a different time. There's no reason they could easily make Hogwarts feel like the 1800s. You know what I mean? Like think about it. If you're Harry Potter and it's like you're going to wizarding school, right? Why is the wizarding school still in a contemporary environment?
Is it? I
Yeah,
mean, they don't have
it's-
like TV screens
might
anywhere.
as
They
well
don't carry
be.
phones. They don't have iPads. It does
Also,
read
high
18.
fantasy
do they have that? That's
exists.
interesting. I guess my argument is they don't divorce them entirely from reality because you don't really want to live your fantasy without modernity. I don't think. I think everyone wants to live
I
in their
agree with
current
that.
world.
General,
I think you need
yeah.
benchmarks in order to understand how special
Yes.
you are. You know, like even our special boy things where it's like by the end of the story, they can snap their fingers and deatomize all the enemies or whatever. We want to know how like unique that is in the world that we're like, because if other people can do it, that makes you less special. But if we use a benchmark of it's just kind of like our world with a few differences, some people have magic or whatever it is, that gives us a frame of reference for how special we are, which once again, it's all about feeling like you're the
See,
one.
I kind of wish that that all these simulations had a Truman Show vibe to them, in that you felt the sense of their flimsiness and them being directed around one specific idea. Because if you're going to build a simulation, like a simulated world, and it isn't just LA again, you know what I mean? Like if you're not doing Devs, for instance, right? That show Devs, spoilers, but you know, so skip ahead a minute if you don't want to hear about Devs.
I just love the way that computer looked, man. That gold computer.
It was awesome.
That was a pretty prop.
Devs
Yeah, sorry.
is creating an actual entire contemporary other universe, right? Like if you're not
Well, and they do nothing but dig into the philosophical question in a real
Correct.
way, which is if
Right.
life is predeterministic,
yes,
go. What are
what
all
would
the
happen there,
implications
which
of that? Let's
is
discuss
awesome,
it.
and maybe
Yeah.
one day we can talk about it.
Good show. Yeah, it has flaws, but great. offers.
Absolutely. If you're like, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to create a sandbox that's sort of a fantasy. That fantasy is always going to be geared around whatever the purpose that you set it down for. Like, for instance, imagine I'm making an alternate universe, but it's essentially to play Assassin's Creed. Everything in that alternate universe is going to be climbable, right? Like cool climbing.
Or assassinatable. Right. Like
Yeah.
that has to even be part of the
Right.
program too.
And
Right.
so like
Yeah.
I think I would like this idea better if it slowly emerged what each of those universes was actually for. Even if it was like, I want to fuck in the 30s. Okay, fine. So like, how is the reality arranged for that? Because it feels like it would be, right? You know, like that would be, I don't know. That's me just nitpicking the story, but I would find that more interesting.
Well, it's clearly arranged in that way in the sense that, for example, they never show them forcibly changing a character's mind.
Correct.
Their minds seem to be inviolable, like they are not computer
That's right.
programs in this version. And yet, the old shy man is apparently fucking whatever young women he wants to at whim. And that made me feel like he does have some kind of admin control over but they never get into that because that would like undermine a bunch of the offers of this movie as if
what is a god is central to the movie.
Like that's, I think ultimately the failing of the movie to me is super exemplified by the fact that we can ask all these questions that I find genuinely interesting. Whereas in this movie, they have a pretty long scene where they introduce a thing that I've never seen anyone have in their office before, which is a little mechanical baseball game.
Yeah, what?
So that at some point he can laboriously go, okay, but you still have to, did it not feel on the nose when he's like, what are we talking about here? And he goes, well, look at this. It's a little world with little mechanical men doing their shit. That's like what the movie we're in now is like. And I'm like, okay,
yeah, I
see.
get it.
We had a fucking metaphor built into the set when it's this ultra modern office that has nothing in it.
But a 30s
except
game.
a little perfect metaphor for what we're about to discuss.
Very silly.
With an old timey,
It just feels like a clumsy, shallow take on.
But it's
what
shallow
it's
on a script level.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily like the hugest fan of the director.
Very atmospheric.
Yeah, but the script is very. It's the same thing I would level at The One, right? That movie, The One that we watched, where it was like, okay, so it's
So
very cool and fun, but also paper thin. There's no depth to this.
Yeah,
You know.
no. It's all about let's get Jet Li fighting himself.
Yeah, how fast can that happen? When can evil Jet Li finally?
This movie at least is like, let's talk about the philosophical consequences of identifying what a god is and what the morality of killing something that we see as our equal, but we know we can turn it off at any time. What does that do to our psyche? It does investigate those questions.
Man, I would love a really bottled, zero budget movie that just nailed the writing about a scientist alone in his garage, or, you know, computer engineer or whatever, finally invents something that starts talking back to him that he realizes, or at least comes to believe, this is a sentient being as intelligent as I am. I did it. My reaction is actually, I'm terrified. I'm not going to tell anyone. Should I murder this thing?
Yes.
Like,
what do I do?
Maybe I want to take this back.
It life.
Right. That would just sitting there in your garage being like, I don't know if the world's ready for this. Maybe I should murder this man.
It asks a great question about marriage and child rearing. I mean, you made the thing. You could obviously.
I could take you out. I could take you out.
Like, why would society like put you in jail for murdering your child? Right? It's yours. It's your child. You made it.
You can't. Right? You can destroy your illegal property.
It's so easy peasy. I don't know why people don't. Like, we don't even need to talk about it.
I wish we didn't. I'd prefer we moved on.
Okay. Well,
but I do think it does a good job of building the 30s vibe, which is it's weirdly specific because Dark City is also like, these aliens recreated the world. They chose to set it in the 40s for no particular reason. I wonder why we like that.
I think filmmakers like
our
it.
False reality.
Because it's,
I guess filmmakers just want to shoot noir because it
and because
rips.
it's the beginning of Hollywood.
Well, and you can do stuff like put the Hindenburg crash in the newspaper incidentally, right?
Yeah,
it says, it pans over, it's like Zeppelin kills 35. And it's like someone just told my wife she can't have the last of Claire, you know what I mean? Oh, the huge manatee.
Oh.
Or they'll have like a bunch of billboards for Lucky Strike. My wife went on strike as far as me getting lucky. A long time ago, right, fellas, huh, fellas, huh, fellas, right, huh, fellas, right, fellas, right, huh, fellas, right, right. Am I right?
By the way, they're calling this virtual reality. I want everyone to know they're calling the experience the virtual reality. Yes, the simulation.
That's right.
And they call it down there. I like that they're like, let's go down there.
It's very Dante's Inferno, right? Like it's
right, definitely going for that. I mean, it's the 13th floor, which is very sweaty in and of itself.
Because it's unlucky. That's why it's unlucky.
It's not good to be not real.
No, it's often a floor that doesn't
it's
exist.
Unlucky for you,
right? Like that. I think that's what they're trying
right. Exactly. A lot of
point
times
out.
it doesn't exist. Yeah.
Right. Not some kind of superstition. I think really is not what they're going for.
I wish if I did have a genie wish, one of them would be to make Vincent D'Onofrio retroactively in every movie be Edgar from Men in Black in the skid suit.
Yes.
Like, I agree. Get you a drink? Sugar water?
Sugar water. We'll get some sugar water. Yeah, exactly.
Talk about a marriage that works.
Oh man, that scene where he's chasing the wife into the elevator, screaming and shooting at her, that really resonated with me.
I enjoy Abe prompting this conversation every time. Like,
send me up, I'm knocking him
consistently
down.
Throwing lobbing softballs.
Something I noticed about this, and this is like a smaller, kind of it's not even philosophy, but we do this thing in a lot of these movies where we love deja vu. Right? In the Matrix, it's a glitch, right? It's something has unnaturally been altered, so you witness a cat twice in a hallway, right? Here, it's seen as a glimpse above people's programming, like something is left over, like Westworld does this too, with their have memories that
in this case, it indicates that the characters are recognizing that they're in love in another reality.
And we see one that I thought was pretty good is that it's not a one-way street where it's like, I imprint this other guy and now he has fantasies of, fucking girls in the 1930s or whatever. Douglas Hall, who's
Einstein.
The 1999 version, picks up smoking from his 1937 counterpart, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So it actually is a two-way street where subconsciously he didn't smoke at the beginning of the film and now he's smoking, and it's never mentioned. I thought that was pretty cool.
That's maybe the only gesture towards an interesting playing with what if they started to bleed into each other. That is interesting.
Right. Yeah, they didn't. I mean, they had kind of like, I have memories or like I have fantasies and maybe they're real now that you're mentioning that this is all a simulation. But it's different to be just like your behavior changes because there's actually a soul.
Right.
And that is fascinating given that there's essentially three just in this movie. And they say thousands, but 3 in this movie of each of the like imprinted people walking around.
Mm-hmm.
Who have distinctive personalities, like you mentioned, the D'Onofrio having 2 wildly different personalities.
Right. Does
Like,
that
how
mean
do you rectify that?
when
Yeah, that
long
was
hair
strange.
Vincent D'Onofrio logs in to quote unquote play the game and be the bartender,
Mhm.
does his brain and personality change so that he is now acts like that guy? Because
I
that
think we're
man, that
meant to
didn't even
believe
occur to me. Because the other guy's not like that. Like he
Mm.
acts like the actor he is
Right.
in both realities.
Right.
Yeah, when you dig into I would also say more than the Matrix, this actually had like problems. Like I don't understand. Again, they treat it like that. Like it's disconcerting for them to jack in and jack out. But I'm like, really? You designed a system where you might log into the game and suddenly you're driving a car. Like, isn't that obviously
Why
on
would
the
you-
face of it?
And
Yes.
if you
really
die,
dangerous. And if you die, you really die.
your stranger
asking
takes
for
over
package.
your body.
You get John
as a
Malkovich.
ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like
Which
you
is
can,
worse
this
than
happens to a guy, you can plug into your character and suddenly be expected to do the Lindy Hop right now. Like we're at
Right.
a dance competition. Which really reminded me of How I Met My Wife. Man, we really
Mhm.
had something there once. Time has a
It'll
way
im-
of
it was-
souring things.
Mm.
Yeah.
How did you feel about? I guess I'm very awkwardly segueing into this point. I really want to
I
hammer
love
home.
it.
How did you feel about the acting and the actors in general in this movie?
That lead guy feels like a misfired attempt by Hollywood to be like, you like this guy? I'm like, no, we don't like this guy. Am I
Yeah,
wrong?
what is it about him?
Problem
No,
with Craig Burko.
Okay.
I
I think
did-
he's like,
no, I
nah,
did
you don't
too.
have it, man.
I mean, I guess.
Yes,
Yeah.
I felt the same way. He didn't have it. I agree with that. And I don't like
What is
I-
it?
Yes, thank you for
Exactly.
asking. It's exactly that's what the movie should have been asking, by the way. I think it's a combination of charm that makes me believe your decisions and lets me into your point of view. Like I feel like I was always a little outside of his point of view, even though I knew what he was doing. Like I feel like I was watching him, but not connecting to him, right? And that's
Mhm.
a thing that's not his fault as a performer. But they're just people who you feel like you're inside their head and you care
Mhm.
about and root for them because
Yeah.
of a quality they have. and people you
Donald
don't.
Glover minus Glenn Powell equals it.
Sure, that's a simple math
There
question.
you
Glenn
go.
Powell.
Isn't that his name?
Why is it a
Twisters?
minus? Yeah, the
Yeah.
Twisters
Yeah,
guy.
because he's like a normal, competent actor who doesn't have it. So if
Oh,
you
I
took
think
that
Glenn
out
Powell
of
does
Donald
have it,
Glover,
actually.
Glenn
no.
Powell has it.
He does
for
not.
sure.
I will
think
fight
he
everyone
does.
on this. He is
No.
generic and forgettable
He
Gap
is-
model fodder.
He is Kevin Costner 2.0.
Oh,
as
Kevin
we said
Costner's
before.
generic
Yeah.
and forgettable. I
Yeah?
have never gotten the Kevin Costner appeal.
So-
I
Well,
don't
Tell that
see
to
it.
Dances with
I
Wolves,
don't
Mike.
see. Tell it to the fact that Dances with Wolves
Tell it to the
places
postman,
their
Abe.
sun key light in multiple opposing directions. That's rookie shit.
That is, hey, it won the Academy Award for cinematography. So you shut the
Well,
hell
what's
up.
really important
That's
in the
The
wonderful.
sun
struggle
doesn't matter. It's emotions that matter.
It's really important in the struggle of the indigenous people in America is what did the white guy get up to, though? What's
You
up with
know,
him?
We got a lot of white stories.
Did
to
he
tell.
earn their respect? Oh, good. Well, that makes it okay.
And that's
Well,
why we dance with the wolves.
Right.
far be it from me to enter into this conversation.
Yeah.
I will
What is
say,
it?
so good. So like obviously casting is always some measure of subjectivity. And some of that subjectivity is like, what do I like? Who are people in my life that I've connected to or hated? And does this face give me any, feeling about that, right? Like this is a thing that
Ooh.
you encounter all the time
Yeah.
when you're starting out in your casting journey and you're like, I have an idea in my head for who this character is. that idea almost always ends up being a person you know or yourself. You know what I mean? Like it's so obvious.
I think there are faces that we all agree emanate, right? Like as a society, we're all like, oh, Richard Jenkins, dad energy, done deal. Most of us feel that when we look at you or whatever.
J.K. Simmons, band teacher.
Or even like, Jack Black, you're going to be a cheerful maniac. That's all you'll ever be.
So like Blake Snyder once said, and I thought this was actually kind of insightful, that some actors actually consistently play the same character and the same story types because there's something about who they are that gels with the way a protagonist works in those story types.
And there's your Gary Oldman and your Ray Fiennes where you're like, you don't fucking know. I'll do fucking anything.
The chameleon,
shapeshifters.
But look at The Rock.
Or Jim Carrey is constantly playing a character in a genie story. You know, it's always a genie story. There's a curse or there's a magic gift, and then, you know, this is what happens, right? So, like, there is an effervescent quality about a character and an actor that have to line up for us to be excited about the role, right? And that wasn't here. Like, I didn't think for any of them, honestly. And I kind of like Gretchen Mol. Even her, I didn't think it totally worked.
Man, it just clicked in my head, like, there's someone I can think of who would be such a good, like, typecast as like a conniving bitch, but I don't think you guys know her.
Okay.
I actually thought it was.
You got a good 10 seconds. There was a good 10 seconds. I was on there like, oh, I'm ready.
I'm like, I have to add a tag that makes it clear. You guys don't know her.
You don't know. No, it's I think that there's also a familiarity that exists. Yeah. We are simple creatures. I think that when in the end, all stories that, except for, you know, obviously artistic stories that are like there to push the push your questioning of stuff, which there are films that do that of different degrees of success, but ultimately, especially for the movies that we're kind of talking about, that are trying to make, you know, a vehicle for an actor or make it feel fun or something like that, doing the same thing over and over is a great comfort to us because we feel like there's a new story here slightly, but like more or less we know what we're going to get. So we're not worried while we're watching the movie that it's going to, you know, show us something we don't want to see.
Well, and filmmaking and storytelling generally is a way for us to be like, let's explore this thought. And I think just like in life, the big questions, you re-examine them over and over and have different thoughts about it. So I think it's totally valid, right?
Different
that we
shades.
need different movies to examine facets.
Right.
I find it very interesting that this guy was supposed to be Chandler on Friends. Like, he literally turned the role down. That's how Matthew Perry got it. Because, and allegedly, that's
that
a
I
real
can kind
thing.
of see, actually, yeah.
Well, allegedly, he was everybody's, like, funniest guy ever, this Craig Bierko.
Oh, everyone's like, this guy's going to blow up in the sitcom
so
world.
So it's so strange when he picked the wrong sitcom, I guess. There was another Friends show
and it didn't go, and
it didn't go.
That. Okay.
So, like, it's funny, though, that here he is as the lead in a movie that has absolutely no joy or comedy in it at all.
It's grimdark. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so he was probably
like
really
anniversary.
pretty seriously miscast. You know what I mean? Like, because clearly it's not using his talents. Well, okay, I don't want to disparage him because he's a good actor. It just isn't a good match of personality and role, in my opinion. And that's, I guess, a critique
also,
on
it's
the
funny as
director,
I
ultimately.
walked away from this movie having the impression of like, oh, he's kind of more believable as the abusive heavy beating his wife. So it's funny that you're like, he was going to be Chandler Bing. Could I hit my wife any harder?
Bing,
bing, bing, bing, bing, boom.
Ring, ding, ding,
Ring a ding, ding-a-ling. I don't know. I feel like maybe it's time for us to close the wormhole. What do you think?
Close the wormhole? Yeah, yeah. Sure.
Okay, great.
If anyone in the comments has a movie that really dissects what is intelligence as its like MO, and it isn't like a thesis film, but just a movie, I would like to hear about it.
I actually thought Possessor kind of had some interesting statements about identity.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Okay.
But like the question of AI, where it's a reflection on humanity, is the source of the question, as opposed to look at that thing in the zoo that might be human. Like, what is that? Because that seems to me how sci-fi frames that question all the time.
Yeah.
And it's fine. It's fine.
I wish I could repossess her, meaning my wife, but not I repossess her because then I'd have her. But I mean, people come and repossess her from me because I stopped paying for her bonbons. Am I right, fella?
Bonbons?
I don't think I've ever eaten a bonbon.
I don't know what a bonbon is.
I don't even know what it is.
Is it the same as a chocolate
Is
truffle?
it an ice cream treat? I don't know.
I think it's I think it might be vanilla ice cream with chocolate.
With chocolate around it,
That's
yeah.
a bonbon.
It's like a dip. It's like this Dippin' Dots, right?
Really?
But it's an older one. Anyway, I'm going to close the wormhole on this. I'll tell you why. There's nothing that great about 1999 that needs to be remembered other than some of its cinema. And I don't like how boring these simulations are. They've made these simulations, they're recklessly under examined and also recklessly under regulated. Like, people are going to be switching in and out all the fucking time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want overgans to come in and zap me and then I lose my, mind or brain or whatever. Like, that's dangerously underregulated. Also, even though I like their 2024 better than mine, like everyone has oceanfront property and stuff, and they're living in space tubes.
They all have Starbucks apartment from Battlestar Galactica.
It really did. I still kind of felt like looking at it like, this can't be that good of a world. Why are they making simulations if that's the case, right? Mm-hmm. Like there was a note of falseness to the 2024 of that time.
Yeah,
and I don't trust it. Yeah, yep. There's skeletons in the simulation, Abe.
I agree. I'm also closing this one because it just feels like, I don't know. I have no problem with us being in a simulation. Like, honestly, that would change very little for me, because that means that in terms of like, if you think about like our local cluster, you think about the universe, like the edges of the map are fantastic. The edges of this map seem to be Tucson, Arizona. You
can only go like 85
You can only go
miles
super far, and that's fucked up. And also, I don't like the posit that this movie makes, that like the moment that you ask that metaphysical question, which is a jarring one, which obviously would take your mind would be, you would be racked with some of this stuff. But everyone turns into a psychopath, and I think it's a simplistic view of humanity just for the sake of drama. I don't want people like that running the show. I'm closing it.
I'm ditching our world for the 13th Floor world, so please let me slip through before you close that wormhole. I'll take anything, man, at this point. I'm just ready to roll the dice, you know what I mean?
Yeah, just gotta get out of here.
Gotta get out of here. Plus, this dude's down there having sex with young girls, leaving them in bed sleeping, tossing cash on the nightstand and bouncing.
Sure. Well, we had a time.
13th Floor. Love you, my boys.
Yeah, I'm coming. I said I'll be there, all right? Jeez.